Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Consciousness Road Trip podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Watt, and again we're joined by a special guest while we take a deep dive into the tools of access consciousness while we explore this amazing planet that we live on.
So let's begin. Welcome everybody to, well, I would introduce it just as my podcast, and you guys all know that one, but my sister Sarah Watt is on here today, and she just told me she's hijacking it also, so it's going to be on two podcasts. So hello, Sarah.
Hello everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
Yeah, well, it's like we're here, I think, 2 weeks into the quarantine. I'm in the US, you're in Australia, and it's like I've got cabin fever, kind of. No, I don't really. It's like at least I still get to go outside.
Yes, I've got 6 more days until I can walk out my front door technically, so I've got very much cabin fever, and I'm very much also using this time to create things and do things that I've always said I don't have time to do. So I'm definitely taking advantage of it and having fun, which is good.
I like that. And it's like, and that's where a lot of people, the people that are looking at it from that place and going, okay, so how do I use this time? And how do I take advantage of this rather than how is it a problem in my life? I mean, the amount of time I have on my hands now that I'm not traveling 30 days out of the month is just crazy.
Yeah. And I think as well, how many people are exactly, it's almost like there's a split between the people that are really using this time to their advantage and then the people that are just waiting it out to be like, okay, so soon everything will be, everything will be back to normal. And which is so interesting really to, we were just on a telecall with Gary Douglas, The World Without End. And that was blew my mind where he started talking about this stuff about what if this was the new normal? What if now is the time to create the future and also how much were we asking for this to show up? Even the people maybe that, obviously we both do a lot of access consciousness. We talk a lot about access consciousness, but what about the people out there in the world that don't do access or whatever, do something else and have been asking for a big change to take place?
Yeah, well, here's your change.
Yeah.
And it's and the thing is too, is when I was listening to that before, is for a lot of people, it's okay, well, let's wait until the comfortable reality that we lived before returns. And it's it's not going to. And living from that place, and I've been there and done it before, where you live from, okay, well, things are going to get back to normal soon, and they never do. But what I realized was, having that comfortable life meant I always had to be looking backwards for what created the comfort in the first place. And it's how a lot of us live our lives. We go, okay, so how did I get comfortable in the first place? And now I need to keep choosing from that, not what can I create now and what other choices do I have? And it's the other thing is if you're willing to be in question in a time like this, you have an advantage to create something that's never existed. Most people don't look at it from that place, but you have to be in that question of what can I create that I've never created before? What choices do I have now that I could make that I've never chosen before? And how do I create my future now that it doesn't exist?
Yeah,
the other thing with having a comfortable life is you create the predetermined and the predictable future so that you can keep the comfort. You keep creating. It's kind of like this hamster wheel. You keep creating backwards while creating forwards and backwards at the same time so that you can make sure your future matches up with your past so that you don't lose that comfort, rather than look at it and go, okay, so if I had no clue what my future was going to be, I just knew I could create it, what would I choose today? And choose from that place. But it really is the place where you got to get up every day and you got to go, okay, so where's my energy required now? What would I like to create today? Not where's my to-do list, because the to-do list doesn't exist anymore either.
Yeah. And how many new areas can you go into and play with that you like this, even, the way we create our bodies, the way we create our businesses, every future now, like, you know, because we talk about this future as though it's also like this one thing, like, you know, to us it's like, well, this is my future, this is the direction I'm moving into. But the other thing I've become aware of with this is like all the little futures that are now available, like the future that I can create with my body, the future I can create with my business, the future I can create with the planet and the people, you know, that I have in my life and in my world. And where it's almost like, yeah, everything's become fragmented in a way, but it's also this place, like this playground where, you know, I knew it existed before, but now it's like this whatever we're creating here is giving the space to look at things like totally differently than I've ever looked at it before.
Yeah, and that thing where it seems like it's fragmented into these different things, that's the way consciousness works. You don't see your future as a whole. You see it as parts and pieces, and it's what you do with that and what you choose based on the awarenesses that you have of how you create the future. It's like most people go, well, I have a separation between my body, I have a separation between finances, my relationships, my future, all of these things. When consciousness doesn't work based on separation, it works based on including everything and judging nothing. So each part of that speaks to the other part, and it all creates together if you're willing to receive. And that's the other thing with what's going on right now. If you're willing to receive something different, you will hear the universe from a different place because you're actually now willing to see it, whereas before it was, once again, that hamster wheel. Oh, I'm just going along on the ride, I'm going along on the ride, and now you're stuck at home for a month going, what happened? Where's my hamster wheel? Where's my comfortable existence?
And is that like where true communion, because I know, you know, I was listening also to a telecall that you and Simone were doing the other day, the ins and outs, based on like relationships done different and the relationship Are You Sure You Want One book. And where the big thing that came out of that call, I mean, it was also another one that was like blowing my mind, but was talking about this place of communion. And like even with these futures that we're creating in different ways now, like how does communion, like, because you talked about how each one will talk to and interact with each other when you're willing to have that level of consciousness or awareness with it, like how does communion come into that as well? That's something, I guess, that word for me right now is so up in my world that I really want to look at like creating more of that. Yeah.
It's the willingness to not have to create separation between you and something in order to have it. Because what most of us do is we go, all right, well, in order to have this in my life, I can't lose it. There, right there, you've created separation between you and it, and you can't create anything greater than that which you can't lose. So you go, okay, there's the separation, which doesn't allow you to have the communion to sense when that is no longer going to contribute to the future that you're creating. And this is what a lot of us do. Go, well, why lifestyle? Well, what is it you've decided that you can't lose that's keeping you going beyond into what you can actually have? And when you're willing to be in communion, and it works the same in, I'm getting notifications, my computer's noisy. It works the same in the way that we create our relationships, and not only with people, with everything, is we go, okay, so my relationship with money is blah, blah, blah. It is, you know, I'm good with it, I'm not good with it, here's my distance that I create between me and money, rather than communion is always from the place of question. Okay, so what would it take for me to have total ease with money? See, the other thing with that part, with that question, is it doesn't allow you to define it. So you can't go, well, what's it going to take for me to have $100,000? You've already defined it. You've already created separation, and the universe doesn't know how to speak from a place of definitions. It doesn't know how to speak from a place of linearity. So it goes, well, I can't give you that. I can show you this, but if you're not willing to be bigger than the definition you have, then you can't receive it. And so everything that brought up, times God's limb, you just try and create it. Right and wrong, good and bad, pod and pock, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds. So it is from that place of, okay, so if I was being in communion with this, what question would I be? Not how do I get what I want?
Yeah. And so looking at like, because I get some of this when people hear this, because even for me, and I've heard this a lot of times, and I'm still like, oh my God, because you talk about creating a relationship with something through separation. Like you want to get closer to something is what we think a relationship is. But in turn, to do that, what we end up doing is creating separation. So like whether it's with your
even closeness is separation though, because it's already created a distance.
Yeah. So maybe like just a tiny bit more on that, just to get that piece. So like, and where this, and maybe like a practical thing of like what that looks like for you in a way.
So people could not understand me more than they just didn't in the last 10 minutes. I'm kidding.
Exactly.
I'm kidding. Well, that's what we do with relationships. We go, okay, I want to be close to this, but with that as your point of view, you've already created the separation, because as an infinite being, you can't be separate. You cannot be separate from anyone or anything. You only create the separation based on the definitions you have. And it's probably a little bit of a deeper topic than I wanted to get into, because a lot of this is like, it is basic to the degree that you're willing to receive from it. It's not. See, most people go, well, define it, show me how it works. You cannot show how something works until you're willing to choose it. So the thing with that closeness is, it's like, okay, I want to get close to this, I want to get close to this, I want to get closer to this. How much judgment do you have to have of you and it in order to create the closeness? Because the other thing we do in relationship with it or with a person is we go, if I choose this, I lose the closeness, but I've already decided I need the closeness, so I cannot choose that. So you will choose against yourself, which creates the judgment. Well, it doesn't create the judgment. You create the judgment in order to create it. But we will choose against ourselves in order to maintain that closeness, rather than go, okay, if I was willing to lose this, and if I was willing to have it, what would I create it as?
Yeah.
But that whole willingness to lose, it's like, and I've done this a lot in my life too. It's like, I have areas in my life where still where I go, I must hold on to this, I need this. And it's like, but I know enough now to know the energy. Doesn't mean I'd changed it yet, but I know the energy of, okay, I know that doesn't allow me to have something greater.
Yeah.
So you got to look at it and go, okay, so what do I desire to create? And for a lot of us, we think the willingness to lose also means you lose. Once again, an infinite being could lose based on what?
Yeah.
But these are the lies that we buy in order to control ourselves so that we can be normal.
Yeah. And I think overall as well, like trying to define things, because obviously like that's where I go on so many things, is being like, if I can just understand this, I can figure it out. And like even talking to you now, where I get how that also creates a separation from everything as well, because definition is automatically going to put something into a box, or it's going to start limiting what that could be. So like how much even because it goes like this space of like everything here getting so big, but really like to look at it from a place of that simple thing you said about, the energy, right? The energy of something, even if it's not like a total cognitive awareness of this isn't going to create the future I want to create, but there's somewhere in everything that comes up energetically where it's almost like the light and heavy tool, right? Like that very basic tool of knowing. And even like where people can start playing with that as being the place where, am I causing separation here, would be a matter of it being, is it light or heavy in a way as well?
Yeah. And what have I decided I need to control with this so that I can get it the way that I want it? And this is another way that we create the separation. We go, well, this has to turn out the way I want it, which doesn't allow it to turn out any greater. You just sparked something and then the train left the station with blah, blah, blah. Well, one of the things I've been looking at with I've got some time on my hands now. So it's like I was going, even with creating my future, I was creating the separation between me and it to make sure I could control it. But also in that, I had to control myself with what I'd choose and go, and I started looking at it and going, wait a minute, I don't even want that. That's not even my reality. That's so that I don't upset this person, or that's so that I don't upset this person. Or so I went, wow, I've learned my whole life how to create my future to keep everybody else happy.
Oh
Anyone else done that?
No.
Every way you've creating your future and your life and your reality in order to not upset anybody, which keeps you being totally controlled. We destroy and uncreate all that.
Yep.
Right and wrong, good and bad, pod and pock, all nine shorts, boys, me on. So it's like I started a list going, okay, so what would I like my future to have? And I was writing things down and I went, wait a minute, that's not my reality. Even with finances, with everything, because the thing I know about myself is if I ask for something, I'm getting it.
Yeah.
But see, we all have that ability to the degree in which we're willing to receive. And that is going to twist your head up because you're like, but what do you mean receive? I'm going to have to do another, what do you call it, podcast on that one, because that's a little bit more than I can talk about right now.
Yeah. Yeah. So looking at that though, and like starting to write some things down and look at like the future you actually desire to create is something that I've been looking at in this time as well. And just how much, and Gary spoke about it on the World Without End telecall just now as well, where we look to what other people are creating as their future in order to create our future.
Yeah.
And almost like using people, I don't know, as like examples or somewhere where, oh, well, if they're choosing that and it's creating greater for them, therefore, if I choose it, it'll create greater for me. And I almost become part of like...
Well, no, not necessarily. It's from doing it from that place, it's so that you can get your future right. Because if somebody else is doing it, then if you do it, then there's two people doing it and it must be right. If you're willing to be a leader and create your future from a different place, you don't do it from a place where you have to get it right. And that is where a lot of us, we look to that because we go, okay, I have to get my life right because I've already decided I'm wrong. So how do I choose what everybody else is choosing so that I can make sure that I'm not so wrong? Everything that is times a godzillion, we destroy and create it.
Yep.
Right and wrong, good and bad, pod and pock, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds. And see, the thing with that too is, and what I've learned over many years is there's always another choice. You don't get, you can't, for a lot of us, we go, well, I can't choose that. You can't run out. But also you have choices available that you don't even know you have available when you're trying to get your life right. You've eliminated choice pretty much.
Yeah.
So everywhere you're eliminating choice in order to get it right, in order to create your life as right and your choices as right because you've already decided you're wrong, we destroy and create all that.
Yeah.
Right and wrong, good and bad, pod and pock, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds.
And then what about the wrong side of it? Like, because we look... Like, because I also get there's this place where we're looking to be right because we've already decided that we're wrong, but also where I see people fucking themselves up in a way. And I'm like, that's wrong. I would never choose something like that. Like,
yeah, well, well, it's like, is that your awareness of where you've chosen it before and made yourself wrong for it?
Yeah.
It's like when that comes up for me, what I do is go, okay, so everywhere I've been there and done that before, destroy and uncreate it. Because see, so everything that is, right and wrong, good and bad, pod and pock, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds. A lot of us still in choosing our future are trying to make up for our past, which we've decided is wrong. All the wrong choices we make, I never can make that again, so I have to get my choices in the future right. So you always have to judge every choice you make in order to make sure you don't relive your past. Everything that is times a godzillion, we destroy and uncreate it.
Yeah.
Right and wrong, good and bad, pod and pock, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds.
And having that place of looking to create communion, we talked about communion before, and what's come up with for me more than anything with that is creating communion with myself.
Yeah.
And I get what you're saying now, how it's so much, for me, matches like if I'm willing to have total communion with myself, I'm willing to create my future, be the leader in my reality, be the leader in my future, and not and still have everything else contribute, but it's still be this place where, yeah, and it's so funny because we're so taught to, rely on other people, include other people, care for other people, which it's not saying don't do those things, but it's so almost like this.
Yeah, but they're all the ways.
Polarity.
They're all the ways that you were taught to judge, so that you could never have communion. Because communion cannot exist with judgment. They cannot live together. You cannot have communion and judge in the same universe. So it's like when you're taught about, like you said, where I've still got to care about people and I've still got to take care of, I've got to, all of that stuff. It's like, how much do you have to judge you in order to make sure you're taking care of people? Because when we were kids, I mean, for you and I, it's like to take care of means you have to give something up with you. You can't be too happy or you're not taking care of me. So for most people, we learn that caring is don't become more than me, give yourself up for me, coddle me when I'm feeling sad. But it's like, so you're constantly looking at these places for how do I judge that I'm caring, rather than knowing, okay, I'm caring. But caring can look from that place also. I'm never willing to stop caring for me, no matter how much somebody else needs me to care for them.
Yeah,
that's true caring, and that's what allows you to have communion with others, because you don't have to judge you. So you
and
don't
it's
have
also.
to.
Sorry, you go.
I was just going to say on that, you don't have to have you don't have to, in order to have communion with somebody, they do not have to have communion with you.
Yeah.
And this is what a lot of us do. We go, well, but how do I get them to see my point of view? Once again, you're doing judgment, which doesn't allow you to have the communion. You got to get free of that. You got to go, okay, so everywhere I've decided I need to judge myself in order to compare myself to others when I know I'm different. But I try so hard to be normal. We destroy and uncreate all that.
Yes.
Right and wrong, good and bad, pod and pock, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds.
And then it's also that place of like with the caring side of things as well, like what I'm becoming aware of is the more I'm willing to choose that communion with myself. And like you were saying, like having the caring for myself, it's also a place where that's the invitation for other people to choose it, right? So rather than it being this place of like showing them how you can care for them or showing them how to care for themselves, like having that caring and communion with you is where it creates an invitation for other people to see it and choose it if they want to choose it.
If they want to choose it, but never having an expectation of them choosing it in order for you to have it.
Yeah.
Never expecting anything of anyone in order for you to be able to choose it. Know what you can choose and go for that.
Go. Yeah.
But it's like what we're talking about here is completely different way to live also. It's like, we've been taught to find the answer. We've been taught to know what the result's going to be before we choose. We've been taught to create predictability in order to be able to control, so that you can't lose sight of what you know you can control. But this is the way we've been taught. So everything you've been taught about the future that's not true, well, you destroy and uncreate all that.
Yeah.
Right and wrong, good and bad, pod and pock, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds. And what I want to do one other thing with this part. What jails are you using to create the dominance of E equals MC squared as seeking a comfortable, predictable future through what created the comfortability and predictability in the past, which keeps you always looking backwards and never truly creating a future that's true for you, are you choosing?
Yeah.
I hope I don't have to say that again. Everything that is times it got silly and we destroy and uncreate it. Right and wrong, good and bad, pod and pock, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds. I think I'll remember it. Let me do it one more time. So what jails are you using to create the dominance of E equals MC squared, as always seeking a comfortable and predictable future through what created the comfortability and predictability in the past, so that you never actually truly have to create a future that's true for you.
Yeah.
Everything that is times a gazillion when you just try and create it.
Yeah.
Wow. Right and wrong, good and bad, pod and pock, all 9 shorts, boys and beyonds.
And then just quickly, like, what came up from that then is, like, with creating a future, like how instantly can that be created? Like, how quickly can a future be created, changed? Like, because we also, well, you know, for me, I've looked at, well, the future's like this long game of like, well, you know, I've got to keep going in this direction because my goal or my end game is to get to this place with my body or with money or with my relationships. But also, like, from what you just said then, because that's pulling me into this place of looking back, like, also how quickly can we be creating and changing our future in every moment?
So what I'm going to do with that, because I can go into a lot on that. What I'm going to do with that is say, do you want to, well, obviously for you guys, it will be a week from now, but do you want to do a part 2 tomorrow or something? And let's start from that place of how quickly you can create a future. Because it's a little bit bigger than I can get into right now.
Yeah, cool. And I guess too, because it's like, once you're willing to choose that, you know, like, we've talked now for whatever, 20 minutes and we've looked at like a bunch of different things, but it's also like, bam, the minute you choose to change it and to do this, like what we're going to talk about in part 2, just how quickly, when you're willing to let go of that control and trying to figure it out, that it can just start changing straight away.
That might be part 3, because that's even a bigger conversation. Okay. But it's like, and what I realized, and I'll just finish with this bit, because that whole thing is like, what I realized for me, because I've always known that the how is not my problem. Okay, all I know is I have to choose. I'll choose. That's the how is the universe's deal. It goes, you choose, we're the how. But it's like, I've been looking at my life over the last couple of weeks too, and going, wow, I've been trying to figure how I'm going to do everything before I choose it. And I didn't even realize it until I looked at it. So that's another thing, because it really is, like you said, from the moment of making that choice, you've created a future. Yep. What action do I need to take now to bring this into existence is different from how do I create this now? Yeah. The how will always keep you in your head. The action is always asking more questions and allowing the universe to contribute to what it is you're asking for. Yeah. Cool. So maybe the how is, we might have you might just be hearing us too for the next 68 weeks. So we hope you like us. Which is fine. We like you guys. We're having fun. We are having fun. So thank you for coming on. The other thing I wanted to say is thank you all you guys for your feedback that you've been giving. My gaggle, which is, my conglomeration of idiots that we all work together creating this crazy stuff. It's like they send them on to me and I read them all and I just think they're fabulous, and it inspires me to do more. So I'm grateful for you guys, and I hope these contribute, and I hope you're getting something out of it, and I hope you're having too much fun. Yay. Thank you for having me on. I look forward to the next conversation. Yes, yes, please. All right, guys. Bye-bye. Bye, guys. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the Consciousness Road Trip podcast. If you'd like to find more of my podcast or more information, you can head to my website, sarahwatt.com.au/road trip or sarahwatt.podbean.com. See you on the next episode.